Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.
Welcome back to Sports Talk is McKimmie. Talking about playoffs, we're talking about the National Football League coming down the stretch, teams battling to make the playoffs. Are you talking about playoffs, Mike?
We're talking about playoffs, Dave.
And I'll tell you, a lot of things happened this week, kind of starting to break down and seeing who's going to make the playoffs. And, we'll kind of start with the NFC, Mike. The NFC right now is just kind of a mess.
Man, you look, I have been all year, or at least the last 2 or 3 shows, been giving the AFC a hard time. I have not focused enough on the NFC East because the AFC South is head and shoulders, sadly enough to say, better than the NFC East. We're looking at coming into today, which is Sunday, December 13th. We had the Cowboys at 4-8, 1 game out of first. And it looks like they'll probably lose today and end up being 2 games out of first, but we're looking at a 6-7 team leading the league. I'm sorry, not the league, the division. And we may be looking at the same thing in the AFC South.
Well, Mike, on the NFC right now, of course, Carolina is still the class of the NFC as they've been basically pretty much all year. They went to 13-0 today with a dominating victory, but, they're looking like they have a possibility to run this season, regular season at 16-0, only 3 games to go. Then you have Arizona right behind them right now, Mike, at 11-2. Green Bay, 8-4 right now, and currently, as we are doing this episode, as we're here in our luxurious studios, we got like 6 games going on at one time. We're watching the Green Bay Packers currently up 14-0 over the hapless Dallas Cowboys. And then you got, as you mentioned, Washington currently leading the NFC East at 6-7. Seattle's come alive right now at 8-5. And Minnesota also at 8-5. But if the playoffs were today, those are the top 6 that are in. But looking from outside, you have Tampa Bay at 6-7. Atlanta, how Atlanta has fallen after starting off this year, looking like they were going to run away with it. They've just completely fallen apart, Mike.
They've lost 6 in a row, Dave. And most of them really haven't even been close. And when you were talking about the Carolina Panthers, a few weeks ago we were talking about how they were winning games in a variety of styles. Lately, they've just been pounding their opponents. They've been beating their opponents badly. They haven't even been involved in a close game. And they're clearly the class of the NFC. And right now, they have to be favorites to win the Super Bowl, I would say. Now, that doesn't mean that a team like Green Bay might not trip them up, or perhaps Arizona or Seattle. Right now, the way I look at it, I see, obviously, Carolina, Arizona, Green Bay and Minnesota are going to make it. Somebody out of the East, whether it's Washington, Philadelphia, New York, is going to make it. And then I think Seattle's going to squeak in. Seattle's going to be that number 5 seed. And they're going to play that NFC East team. And they're going to make it to the second round of the playoffs against, I would say probably the way it's looking right now, it looks like Minnesota would, well, I take that back. Minnesota might be the 6th seed. We don't know whether, at this point, since they have the same records, whether Seattle or Minnesota will be the 5 or 6 seed. But the other one will play probably, at this point it looks like Green Bay. We could have a Minnesota-Green Bay matchup in the first round of the playoffs, with Arizona and Carolina just sitting back and waiting.
Well, right now, to me, Carolina is still the class of the NFC. Barring a major injury, it seems like they're going to come rolling into the playoffs. Now, on the AFC, also still pretty wide open over in the AFC. You got Denver, who currently has the number 1 seed right now. They win the tiebreaker over New England based on head-to-head win percentage with that big win, as New England has actually had a slip-up. They've lost 2 games in a row, and I know a lot of sports analysts are jumping on the, New England's over again. But to me, if you got Tom Brady and you got the guys they got, I don't think you can give up on them yet. I think they're still going to be the one to beat in the AFC. Cincinnati has now fallen to 10-3 after they lost to Pittsburgh today. But the main story coming out of that game with Pittsburgh was the injury to quarterback Andy Dalton. We're going to have to see how big of how critical of an injury that was to Andy Dalton. Then you have Houston at 6-6 right now. I mean, they're currently leading the pathetic AFC South. You got Kansas City in the 5th seed because they win the tiebreak over the Jets in Pittsburgh. And then you also have the Jets squeaking in right now at number 6, winning the tiebreak over Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh is really starting to heat up now that they're getting healthy with Roethlisberger and some of them back are at 8-5. But right now, currently, they're on the outside looking in.
So, much different than the NFC. When we look at the AFC, excuse me, it's really whittled down to 7 teams. New England's going to be in there. Cincinnati's going to be in there. Whoever makes it out of the AFC South is going to be in there. They're like I said, they're just kind of like the NFC East. I would. Last time I said Houston was going to lose, they won. But they play New England tonight, and I'm just going to, let's say they lose, then we're going to have another 6 and 7 team tied for first place in the AFC South. Denver looks like they are headed to the AFC West crown. Like you said, Kansas City is in there. And then it really comes down to Kansas City, the Jets, and Pittsburgh. One of those 3 teams is not going to make it.
Well, Mike, and right now to me, even though New England's lost 2 in a row, I still think they're the favorite to me right now coming out of the AFC. I still think, similar to a few weeks ago, I think Carolina is still the team to beat over in the NFC. But the AFC really seems to be tightening these past few weeks. And, we were talking about Green Bay. Green Bay, I was kind of leaving them for dead a few weeks back, but they kind of seem re-energized since the 61-yard miracle pass by Aaron Rodgers to beat the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, that was incredible. The Detroit Lions, they had, coming into that game, they had, because the records of so many teams in the NFC are so down this year, there were still a lot of teams that were in it, and that pretty much ended their playoff hopes. But yeah, re-energized the Packers and the Packer fan base, And I know of one student of mine in school, Jay Lidd, big Vikings fan. He came to school the next day and he was just, did you see that? And yeah, we saw it. And it was a tough pill to swallow for a Vikings fan who would appear to be no better than tied for first place with the Packers at the end of the season. But I would say that right now, I don't know that I would change what we said a few weeks ago. I would still, like you were saying, I would still stick with the Panthers and the Patriots. Good time. If you're going to lose 2 games, your 11th and 12th games aren't bad ones to lose. You got 4 more games to pick up the pace.
Well, and I think, of course, going into week 14 right now, Seattle is seeming to kind of slip underneath the radar right now, and I think they're seeming to get hot right at the right time of the season. I mean, a big 35-6 win today, and if they sneak it in number 6, they might do some damage in the playoffs.
Nobody's going to want to play them.
Yeah, no one's going to want to play them. Seattle's going to be a tough one to beat, but I really think next week, Week 15, is really going to be Separation Sunday. The playoff field is going to be played out a little bit more, Mike.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens, Dave.
Well, we'll be right back on Sports Talk is McKimmy. We'll be back with our rants of the week when we come right back.
What's that?